I see food outside. Look at that. Look at that food. Be quiet. Be quiet. Okay, go and eat. Go and eat. Go eat outside. Go quickly. Eat quickly. Eat quickly. Today, no time. No time. You eat quickly. Limited time today.
Angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Amanda, Ata, Raka, Deda, Baka, Santa, Ata, Ambu, Osa, Tata, Rite, Eke, Bata, Ata, Rite, Didi, Ashada. The angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now.
All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want to say peace to each and every one of you in the name of his son, Yahushua HaMashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. So it's a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to bring a message contained in his word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. In today's message, I want to talk about a very basic principle, and that is proper worship. You know, many people are under the impression that when it comes to the Most High, who we refer to as God, that we can worship him any kind of way. And as long as we're doing something and call it, quote unquote, in honor of him, then it really doesn't matter what we do. You know, you do your thing, I do my thing. But the question that we should ask is that the truth? And furthermore, if you believe in the Bible, what does the Bible actually say in regard to your worship? Because when we read the Bible, what we'll find is that it is not true that we can worship any kind of way. He is very distinct. He is very specific in the way in which we are supposed to worship. So let's pick it up in the gospel according to John chapter 4. I believe this to be one of the biggest problems that we have, and I think it is born out of, quite frankly, our waywardness and our rebellion. And that's just something that's in practically every human being, this desire to fulfill one's will, because what we want to say, well, I'll acknowledge you as long as I can continue to do what I want to do. And that's just simply not the case. That's not how it's set up. Even when you read in the book of Romans, actually, you can hold our finger in John, but when you go to Romans 1, and it talks about how even from the beginning, man knew the Most High. They knew that he was there, but what they did was they held that truth in unrighteousness. And so what they did was they began to create their own God. This is Romans 1 in verse 18. It says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them." So what did they know? They knew he existed. And how did they know he existed? They knew he existed because the creation speaks to his existence. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork, as Psalms 19 says. So it says, because that which may be known of him of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power here and God here, so that they are without excuse. So man knows that. Man knew that. He said, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. So they began to deal with idolatry. See, that's man's effort to try to have it both ways. I'm gonna make a God. I know God exists, but I'm gonna make him I'm gonna make him how I want to make him. Or I'm going to acknowledge, yes, I acknowledge these, these principles that I see that are universal, like the sun bringing life or reproduction in nature. I see these principles, but I'm going to personify those principles, and I'm going to worship that way. But that, in essence, you're still worshiping the creation. and you're worshiping something that did not make all things, and also in addition to that, you are going to fulfill oftentimes some licentious behavior, some desire, some carnality that you wanted to do, and it's often associated with that worship. That's why you have like, for example, it's not a coincidence that you see prostitution, temple prostitution associated with worship of a deity. Let's pick it up here, where it says in verse 26, it says, "For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural usage of that which against nature." So once you do away with him, you've automatically done away with his law. His law is perfect, converting the soul. His testimony is sure, making wise the simple. But you've done away with it. Thus, you can only have sin, and that's what takes place once you do away with him. So he said, "For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet." So what do you see? You see homosexuality. Homosexuality is a sign of godlessness. But notice they had idols. They had idolatry. They had gods. They were just false gods. Okay? And so as a result, they had worship associated with these false gods, and the behavior of the people was wicked. That's what you see even amongst Israel today. You see all these churches, but it's false worship. And so associated with that false worship and all the things they're about to do for Easter, the things they do every Sunday, the things they do for Christmas, the things they do in honor of this pagan God that they created out of the vain imagination of their mind, this fake Jesus that they come up with. I'm not calling the Messiah fake. I'm saying this is, as Paul said, another Jesus. Right? The one that's European, that was born December 25th. That died Good Friday and rose Easter Sunday, that nullified the law, saying you don't have to keep the law. That's the one that's a part of a Trinity. That's false. That's all false. But their worship associated with that falsehood. And then on top of that worship, they have a bunch of wayward behavior, a bunch of sin, a bunch of iniquity that they fulfill every day in their life. Why? Because they God say they don't have to keep the law no more. You see what I'm saying? Their Savior said the law is done. Wait, he died and that's it. He nailed all the law to the tree. You don't have to keep it anymore. That's born out of carnality. That's born out of rebellion. But when it comes to worship, how are we supposed to approach it? This is John the 4th chapter. And here this is the account of Yahushua or Jesus with the Samaritan woman. Now the Samaritans were people that were placed in the land during the Assyrian siege and captivity of the northern kingdom. So it says they took the children of Israel, they displaced them, and then brought in these people, and they became known as Samaritans. So it says in verse 19, John 4:19, "The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet." Right? She's talking to the Messiah because he told her about herself. He told her, why don't you call your husband? She said, I don't have a husband. He said, yeah, you're right. For I have had 5 husbands, and the one you with now is not that husband. You said what you said is true. She said, the woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Then verse 20 says, Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Now notice what he goes on to tell her. Verse 21, it says, Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship. Then he goes on to say, for salvation is of the Jews. Now what does that mean? So we need to understand that, again, you can't just worship any kind of way. See, he's the Elohim, or he's the Most High of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what did he give unto Yisrael? He told him, only you have I known of all the nations of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquity. He tells you what advantage does have the Jew, what profit is their circumcision, much chiefly in every way, for unto them were committed the oracles of God. The laws, the statutes, the commandments, the judgments, the ordinances that tell you how to worship, they were given to one people. They were given to the children of Israel. They weren't given to the Romans, okay? They weren't given to the Protestants of England. They weren't given to some tribes in the Americas. in Mesoamerica, or some tribes indigenous to the interior of Africa. Rather, they were given to the children of Israel. Now, they are black Semitic people, but that's who they were given to. So if you want to know how to worship him, you must worship according to what he gave his people. That's the advantage of being a Yahudim or being an Israelite. Not the people that are in the land today professing themselves to be those people. That's the biggest fraud going. So he said, you worship, he goes on to say in verse 22, ye worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So if you want salvation, you got to come back this way. You know how that principle is shown? When they left Egypt, they left in a mixed multitude. Meaning there were people of other nations, Egyptians and even others, that came with the children of Israel out of bondage. Why? Because it was shown who the Most High was. And it wasn't Pharaoh. And it wasn't one of the deities of the Egyptian pantheon. But verse 24 says something else. It says, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So there it is. So you can't worship him based on your vain imagination of your criteria, what you came up with. How could that be? You don't even can you understand that even amongst human beings, you don't give your parents the rules. The rules are set forth by the parents for the child. The child's supposed to follow the rules. But this, you come up with your own rules as a child. This is what I will agree to. This is, man, if you don't sit down. And you can understand that being a parent. How dare you tell me what you're going to do? You know what that is? That's out of order. And you know what that can't turn out well. Because the child is not going to actually, if it's a true parent, the child doesn't know what he's supposed to do. The child, she doesn't know what she's supposed, okay, my bedtime is, I don't have one. You know, I know you said go to bed at 8:30. I'm 9 years old, go to bed at 8:30, but I say, what I say goes, and I got rid of bedtime. I know you said eat that which is healthy, but I say I'm eating McDonald's every day. I'm eating McDonald's every day. I have no bedtime. I know you said do my chores, clean up my room, but I say, no, I'm not cleaning up my room. You clean up my room, and I sleep in your bed. You sleep in there. And I got unlimited snacks. I watch what I want on TV. I know you say you don't want me to watch anything that's over the PG rating. I say I'm watching anything I want to watch when I want to watch it, and you better not say anything to me. That's what that sounds, as ludicrous as that sounds. That's what man has done when it comes to the Most High. They've come up with their own standard. Matter of fact, they say, you know what, you're not my parent no more. And you bring in another neighborhood child and say he the parent. But he do what I tell him. He the parent in name. So that's you done made an idol. That's God, but he actually how to worship God, I made it up. That's what man has done. You can't read anything, even in these Christian churches. They have idols everywhere in a lot of them. But then also, your standard of worship is not written in the Bible. It came from outside. We'll talk about where it comes from. But you can't come up with your own way. You have to worship him according to the truth. Now the question is, because he said, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So what is the truth? I'll give you an example of how, you people not worshiping according to the truth. Like I mentioned earlier. When you come to the Messiah, Yahushua, or Jesus, was he born on December 25th? No. So why are you keeping Christmas? That's a lie. Did he die Good Friday and rise Easter Sunday? No. Why are you celebrating Easter? That's a lie. Right? Because the only sign, he said, they required a sign. He said, and even an adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it, but except the sign of the prophet Jonas. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. You can't get 3 days and 3 nights from Good Friday to Easter Sunday. We know Easter is pagan. So why are you upholding that day, venerating that day? That is based on a what? A lie. You go to church every Sunday. When he said, remember, one of the 10 commandments is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. We read Christ in Luke the 4th chapter that he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. He kept the Sabbath. Paul, as his custom was, did what? He kept the Sabbath. This is after the death and resurrection of Christ. Nowhere in the Bible does it tell you that you're supposed to hold a weekly convocation on Sunday. That is a what? A lie. And all that comes out of paganism. So you can't call yourself worshiping him dealing with what? Lies. Because he said God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So the question is, what is the truth? Let's go to John the 17th chapter. In verse 17. John 17:17 reads, sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. So wait a minute. You have to be set apart by the truth, and his word is the truth. So that's how you have to worship him, because he's a spirit. And you can't worship him. You can't come up with your own standard. That doesn't even make sense. So now, if you're going to worship him, you're going to worship him according to the truth, which is his word. Let's see what else is described as the truth. Because he gave you how to worship him. This is Psalm 119. Psalm 119, and we'll pick it up at verse 142. What does it say? David writes in this acrostic psalm, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. See, when you go to Torah, the one where they say has been done away with, which you can't read that. Even in the new covenant, he said, I'm going to put my law in your heart. Christ came preaching, it's written thou shalt not commit adultery. But he told you, don't even look upon a woman or another man's wife that you commit adultery with, to lust after her, but you commit adultery in your heart. That doesn't sound like he's doing away with the law. He's showing you how you even should think about the law. He's saying, he said, hey, it's written, that thou shalt not kill, but I'm telling you, don't even be angry with your brother without cause. You understand that you can't come up with your own way of worshiping him? He said again, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy laws are truth. He tells you in Psalm 119 and 151, thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are truth. So what is truth? Because he told you, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. He told you, sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. Then he told you that thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness. And he said, and thy commandments are the truth. And thy laws are the truth. Then he tells you, thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are the truth. So who did he give that to? Again, only you have I known of all the nations of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquity. He gave it to Israel. Let's go to Psalm 119. Because he tells you in Psalms 19 again about what truth is. In Psalm 19 and verse 9, he said, the fear of the Lord is clean, endureth forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. So his judgments are the truth. So what he gave you is what you're supposed to worship him by. And notice what he said too. If you read this, he said, and I alluded to it earlier in verse 1, where it said, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. So now, this is the creation that you read about in Romans 1. This is what they knew. They knew the invisible things, right? I made no clip about the things that I made, so that even his eternal power in God here, so that man is without excuse. See, the creation speaks to his existence, but he doesn't just exist. He gave you a standard by which to live. Who did he give that standard to directly? It was given unto his people, where he manifested himself directly. And so it was even known before that now. Understand that. It was known before that. You can read in Genesis, right? Even with Adam knew what he was supposed to do and what he wasn't supposed to do. You can read how if he got the sons of God and the daughters of man, you understand that those sons of Elohim, they understood and they were righteous what the standard was. That's why he flooded the earth, because of sin. We know Noah knew. Noah was a preacher of righteousness. That's why Noah found grace. So there's always been a standard. But he officially gave that when he came down on the mount before the nation of Israel and gave them the lively oracles. And let's read this in Romans 9. He says, I wish, now he has the same sentiment as Moses, where Moses said, blot me out of the book. Paul writes in Romans 9:3, for I wish that myself were accursed from Christ, for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, right? He said, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises. So that was all given unto one people. Okay, now there's a commonwealth. You can be a part of that commonwealth, but it's a commonwealth. It was given to one people. He gave the people what? The truth, and told you that's how you're supposed to worship. So what about if you come up with your own way of worship? This is what people need to realize. Your worship can be for nothing. See, and that's our problem. You think because you filling up all these churches that's okay, you doing what's right, but did he tell you to do that? Right? It's just like, again, I go back to the parent and the child. The parent told you, hey, don't leave this house, get your homework done, get in that bed at 9 o'clock. You leave the house, come back at 1 o'clock, call your friends over, y'all in the house smoking weed, right? You done no homework, right? But you did get one of your classmates pregnant. I'm just going extreme because that's really what's going on in these churches. Extreme. So when a parent come home, right, and say, hey, did you do what I told you to do? Did you do your homework? Did you not leave the house? You know, clean up your room, whatever they told you to do. He said, no, I didn't do any of that, but I did do something. I left and came back at 1 o'clock. Then I called my friends over there and got somebody pregnant in your bed. Wait. And can I get my allowance now? That's what people are saying when it comes to the Lord. You have done nothing he said to do, but you want your allowance. In other words, you want the reward that he's going to give. How is that when you haven't done what he said to do? How would you give an award? How would you get your award when you've done away with all his rules? The things that he told you to do to get a reward. Because you say, well, I believe in Christ. Well, I believe that's my parent. Yeah, you can believe that's your parent, fine. But the parent did have some criteria as well. See, that's why I say the criteria of a saint, or what makes you a saint, is your belief or your faith in Christ and keeping of the law. Not just believing that he is what he is. Yeah, he is what he is. Now, what are you supposed to do? He is what he is and did what he did and died for you because you sinned in the first place. Now you can keep sinning? That's just like a kid getting in trouble in school. All right, now, I done got you out of this trouble now. I done got you out of trouble. Okay, you got me out of trouble. Thanks. That means I can continue to mess up in school. What world does that make any sense in? Only in Christianity. Only when it comes to man and whether how he gonna worship. But even amongst everyday situation, that doesn't make sense. You on death row, and then you get pardoned by the governor. And then you say, well, hey, I got this pardon. So now you go rob a bank. They say, you coming out the bank with all the money, freeze. They then surrounded the bank. You say, hold on, man, hold on, chill out. What's wrong? Drop the weapon, drop the money. Nah, I got this pardon from the governor. See, I got pardoned. See, you see this piece of paper? I got pardoned. I can do what I want to do. And you going to jail. You going to jail. That's when you going up under the jail, and you gonna be up under jail. And depending on what state it's gonna be the death penalty. Well, that's what people got coming. See, that's what people got when it's pertaining to this worship, the death penalty. Let's pick it up in Matthew the 15th chapter. Because is it that you can just worship any kind of way? Christ didn't tell you that. He told you the opposite of that. You better stop listening to these false prophets. This is Matthew the 15th chapter, verse 1. It says, then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, why did thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders, for they wash not their hands when they eat bread? But he answered and said unto them, why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? And that's what people do. They come up with all these traditions and want to uphold them and look at you crazy for not keeping them. But why don't you just do what he told you to do? See, you keep Christmas, but don't keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You keep Easter, but don't deal with the Passover. You keep Thanksgiving, but don't deal with the memorial of blowing of the trumpets. You keep Sunday, but don't observe his Sabbath day. And then looking at people who trying to do it crazy. Yeah, something wrong with him. He going to church on Saturday. Ain't that crazy? Is it? Or is it just what's written? But now he says, but he answered and said unto them, why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die of death. But ye say, whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, it is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have you made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. Listen to me. Your traditions cannot change what thus saith the Lord. And he tells you what's the outcome of that. He says, ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draw nigh to me with their mouth and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. See, if your heart was truly near him, and if you want to truly honor him, you will be doing what he said to do. You would be meditating on his word, like David said. You wouldn't be coming up with your own word. You wouldn't be coming up with ways to circumvent his word. And that's just a side note. That's why I said, if you don't have the right spirit when it comes to his law, you're not going to even approach his law right, thus, and you will break it. That's what you see with so many Israelites today. They're looking for ways to circumvent his law. Like the scribes and Pharisees and Sadducees in Yehoshua or Jesus' day. They had the wrong mindset. That's why when he came, who fulfilled the prophecy of the Messiah to come, they rejected him. How you reject him and you done read this your whole life? Because you don't want to lose your position. You don't want to be in subject to anybody. As they said, come, this is the heir. Let us seize on his inheritance. Same thing when it comes to the law. Well, I want to do what I want to do. Here you see it say, honor thy mother and thy father. You turned it into a gift. You added some leavening. And thus have you nullified his law. And he calls you a hypocrite. And he tells you something else. He said in verse 7, ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draw nigh to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Then he goes on to tell you, because the question is that I started with, is what are you going to get out of this? What are you going to get out of worshiping according to what you say, not according to what's written, not according to the truth? He said, but in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. So your worship is for nothing. You going to church every Sunday for nothing. You keeping Christmas and buying the gifts of those bad children that you haven't disciplined, right? You going broke to buy gifts of people that don't even like you. That's for nothing. You keeping Easter, you paying 1,000 eggs for nothing. You buying Easter suits and preparing kids Easter speeches for nothing. You going to, like I said, going to church every Sunday. I feel good about myself because at least I did. You know, I didn't, you know, they don't even realize it. I done did everything Saturday, Friday. I done went Friday night, went to the club and woke up drunk next to somebody you don't even know. Then got up Saturday, went to work, left work, went shopping, left shopping, did all your housework. Then he said, well, I done did, then went back out all Saturday night. He came home 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, but I go to church every Sunday. They just have a saying, old people say, you ain't gonna party all Saturday night and then ain't gonna, or all Saturday night and then ain't gonna go to church on Sunday. Listen, what about the Sabbath day, which is Friday night and it ends Saturday night? What about that period that the Bible tells you you're supposed to sanctify? He never told you to do Sunday. That's what I said. And that's based off of old sun worship. So Easter, pagan worship. Even Thanksgiving is pagan. It comes from the old harvest festivals. So now they were doing that before the Pilgrims and the Indians helped. They were already keeping harvest festivals in England. That notion is something that you see. That's what Sirius is about. Where you get cereal from. That notion of these harvest idols or pagan deities, that is old. Or Christmas, December 25th, being venerated. You see that with Mithraism. You see that with the Vermilion that came after the Saturnalia. Or Natalis Invicti, or Sol Invicti, the birth of the sun around that time of the winter solstice. But December 25th was the day. You read, you know, the winter solstice around December 21st, December 25th, December 22nd, excuse me. But December 25th is a day that is venerated. Why? Because of sun worship. So how did all this paganism get into Christianity, what we call today Christianity? Revelation. See, you need to find out where this all come from. Revelation, the 17th chapter, and we pick it up at verse 3. So John writes, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, we need to identify this. Where is this at? This is verse 9, it says, and he is the man which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. So the woman is, understand, that's a church. And it's not just any church. It's not the Lord's church. It's not his bride. This is the Roman Catholic Church. That's why it says 7 hills and 7 mountains, because it got 7 hills of Rome. Where you have in Rome? The Roman Catholic Church. And what has the Roman Catholic Church done? We're going to read it, because this is what this is talking about. It has indoctrinated the whole world with false worship. But it's not just like, okay, you dealing with some paganism. They've stamped the name of Christ. They've adulterated this into where they had people thinking that they are worshiping the Lord in the Bible. They're not doing that. You wipe off the veneer, you see paganism. You wipe a little further, you know what you see? You see Luciferianism. But now this is outright Luciferianism. But now this is verse 4. It said, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. Because they've been able to enrich themselves tremendously. So it says, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. What is this? This is all the false doctrine that came out of this church. So people say, I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Baptist. I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Lutheran. I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Calvinist, Episcopal, or Apostolic, or AME. Listen, you are of your mother. And let's see what your mama was. It says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. She's the mother harlot, meaning, or mother prostitute, or mother whore. And this is spiritual. This is spiritual whore. It's all a false doctrine. And so she had a bunch of children. Bunch of children. All the hundreds and hundreds of denominations that you see out of Protestantism, that came out of Roman Catholicism. So you have various variations, but you just like your mama. The Baptist, Southern Baptist, all these Anabaptist, all these denominations, you just like your mama. What was your mama? A whore. That's what it said. I know that's strong language, but are we reading the Bible or are we reading the Bible? It said, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. And abominations of the earth. So that's where all this false worship is coming from today in Christianity. It comes from Roman Catholicism. And you really gonna see this in the last days, when you see the rise of the man of sin, the son of perdition, the abomination, this abominable man that's going rise during the time of the Great Tribulation. Where do you think he's coming from? He's the vicar of Christ. He's coming out of the office of the papacy. He's coming out of Rome. But all of this false doctrine, all your false worship, be for nothing. And then what's gonna happen then is people it's gonna really be a time of trial. What you really believe, what you really worship. They're gonna say worship falsely, worship or bow down to this image that he's given through the power of Satan, giving it the power to seem like it's human. It'll have human like characteristics rather. You gonna worship this or we gonna kill you. And then you're gonna find out what you really believe for real. You know, because it's going to be on the line then. And if you worship, you understand that the Lord's going to cast you into the lake of fire. Where there should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. You take that mark of the beast. If you don't take the mark of the beast, which is an acknowledgement of your worship of that image, then he's going to kill you. If you don't take the mark of the beast, he'll kill you. Understand the powers that be at that time on the earth. But then, ultimately, if you do that, the Lord is going to cast you in the lake of fire. I want to be clear on that. You read that in Revelation. Let's just read that. And because then what's your worship, then it'll really be on the line. It's already on the line now, but it'll be in your face then. So it says in 14:9 of Revelation, and the third angel follows them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. You understand? Your worship, listen, that's what is right in your face. But in general, your worship is in vain. Your worship, you're not going to get a good reward worshiping falsely. You can't just do what you want to do. That's why he tells your hand offend, he cut it off. Right? He's not telling you to literally cut your hand off. He's telling you to bring your body into subjection. This is what people don't want to do. People think they're doing the right thing, but you don't know what you're doing. This is the last place. Matthew the 7th chapter, verse 21. He says, "Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven." See, you have to do his will. Just because you calling on him don't mean anything. He talked about in Matthew 15. The people draw nigh to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. For in vain they do worship me. He said, for in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines and commandments of men. You calling on them, that don't mean anything necessarily. He said, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Where do you think you're going if he tells you that? You going to the lake of fire, where there should be weeping and gnashing of teeth, where the worm dies not and the fire is not quenched. Well, how do you know if you know him or not? Let's go read it. See, people have been led astray, but it's listen, you have to take and make sure that people are telling you the truth. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. You can't just come up with your own way to worship him. So how do you know if you know him? I'm going to pick it up in 1 John 2 and verse 3. It says, and hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. How you know him if you don't do anything he said to do? How you know him if you don't know what he said about various aspects of human endeavor, about forms of worship? He gave you that in Torah. He gave you that in his word, but you're not dealing with his word, so how do you know him? Because you said his name? You don't even know that. He said, hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. Then it said, he that said, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, he said, is a liar. And guess what he said? And the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby know we that are in him. So you don't know him if you're not keeping his commandments. And if you're not worshiping him according to the truth, your worship is in vain. And you're going to end up in a lake of fire. Now, that's not an easy sell. That's not a smooth message, but that is the message of the book. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that whatever some man is telling you about the word, whatever some women in these days, because you have men and women that are false prophets today, shepherds for the devil. If they're telling you something, you want to be like the Bereans in the Acts of the Apostles. When Paul was preaching unto them, they made sure what Paul was saying was in the book. And it's not just, hey, he stood up, we read, like when I used to go to church, he stand up and read a half a verse. Then he started talking, all of it's taken out of context. You better know the context of what's being spoken. You better understand that you need to be able to verify what he said there with what's written, and then some other witnesses in the text. Otherwise, you're more than likely being lied to. And if you can't get the basics that you in there on Sunday, every Sunday on the wrong day, what are you doing? He never told you to do that. You can't justify that. And if a man tell you, well, I worship the Lord every day, like that snake T.D. Jakes said, it ain't about I worship him on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, Friday. Yeah, you're a liar. Because that's not the issue. The issue is, and you're a deceiver, what day did he tell you to hold a holy convocation and to rest? It is the Shabbat. He know that. But he will lie to you to justify that false doctrine, to go to church every Sunday. This, brothers and sisters, you better get it together. Time is short. And with that, it's always my prayer that you will edify.